Yes, yes, the Castlenovians. Yes, yes, the Castlenovians. Alright, lads. In this one, what I want to do is I want to talk about self-limiting beliefs and how I overcame my own self-limiting beliefs, and hopefully by watching this live all the way through, you will be able to crack the code for dating. I do think the game that we're playing is 93% in a game. Yeah, internal state equals external reality. Like I said to you boys all the time, it's not what you say, it's not how you say it, it's who you perceive yourself to be when you say it. And after coaching hundreds of guys from all over the world, all one-to-one by the way, I don't do any of that group coaching bollocks, what I've noticed is the biggest epidemic plaguing men is this perceived lack of self-worth. Yeah, and I say all the time, you don't have dating problems. As far as I'm concerned, dating problems do not exist. You have personal problems. Yeah, and deeper than that, you've got human problems. And if you don't get these personal problems fixed, no amount of clever lines, no amount of looks, money, status, none of that is going to make a shite of difference until you've overcome the self-limiting beliefs that are going on, that are plaguing you internally, right? Because I work with these guys. The majority of my clients, they already have these boxes ticked. They have looks, money, status. They've become quote unquote high value men. Yeah, they subscribe to the ideology of build it and they will come. Yeah, oh, focus on your career, ignore women for years, or all this bollocks like, oh yeah, dude, just focus on your life, just focus on yourself and women are magically gonna show up. All of this cope advice from guys who are clearly struggling in the dating game, but they're just coping their way through it because I think passivity is quite a clever strategy. Oh, I'm just waiting. Yeah, I'm just waiting on the sidelines. Oh, she'll come eventually. Sexy Cassandra one day is going to knock on my door and be like, hi, John, I've heard you're a high value man. I've heard you've got an 8-figure bank balance. I'd like to be your wife. And I just think it's complete bollocks, right? And I think for a lot of us, we have been fed this steady diet of bullshit, not just from society at large, like be a good boy, ask for permission when you're allowed to go for a shit, work your 9-to-5 job, and maybe one day you'll be able to retire in the Maldives when you're 65, and by that time, you're probably incontinent and shitting yourself every 5 seconds. Or then the other bullshit is, oh, just learn these lines. Yeah, 5 easy tricks to get any woman into bed. Yeah, the pickup community. Or then you've got the weird red pill community who are like, oh, it's all looks, money, status. You need to have the body of a Greek statue. You need to have biceps the size of fucking coconuts. You need a 7-figure bank account. You need to be a high value man. And all these women are going to be throwing themselves out, yeah. But what I found with a lot of these high value dudes is their internal hasn't caught up with their external. Yeah. And every time that they see a wife worthy woman who they would like to start a conversation with, they think too many steps ahead, they experience failure in advance, and they reject themselves on the woman's behalf. And I've actually found the higher guys climb up the totem pole of materialistic success, the more they feel as though they've got to lose. Yeah, you imagine a guy who's followed this mainstream red pill manospheric advice to the letter, right? You imagine a guy, we'll call him Bill, right? You imagine Bill has got to 38 years old. He's prioritized his health. He's smashed his career out the park. He's got money in the bank. He's been fucking gym maxing to the gills. And you imagine that he's ignored women until he got to 38 years old. Yeah, oh, men go their own way. Build it and they will come. Now imagine that Bill meets a wife-worthy woman at 38 years old. But because he hasn't prioritize FaceTime with the feminine, because he hasn't had experience in the land of women, because he's never had his heart broken yet, because he's not learned how to navigate the inevitable issues of relationships and the feminine, I think it's a very dangerous position for a guy to get into if he gets to 38 years old, he falls head over heels with Cassandra, and then she just leaves his ass because she realizes he lacks what I think women are more attracted to anyway, which is who you are more than what you have. Like, yeah, obviously, do everything within your power to look and feel as good as possible, stack cash so you can actually take care of the people who matter to you. But if there's one thing that I've learned, it's female attraction triggers are so different to male attraction triggers. I learned from Zamperion a long time ago when he said, men become aroused through their eyes, women become aroused through their ears. And there's a lot to be said from that quote, but it really speaks to the fact that female attraction triggers are a lot different to male attraction triggers. It's character, it's perseverance, it's leadership, it's freedom from bullshit, it's assertiveness, it's dominance. All of these things carry far more weight than how symmetrical your fucking jaw is, right? So if you're watching this, and by the way, I've got this like weird like little spot on my lip. It's because I was training Muay Thai like 2 days ago. And I got my lip fucking busted. I've literally got scratches all over my body as well. Honestly, I'm loving the brutal like Muay Thai sessions out here in Bangkok. I feel as though I've just become a new person through adversity. It's like I had this epiphanova. I think it was yesterday actually, and it was like one of the greatest epiphanovas that I've had in my entire life. Because I was trying to work, I'm going to get on to limiting belief soon, but for the right person, this is actually going to be a game changer. I was kind of looking over everything that I've done in my life. I'm kind of like questioning why I do certain things, because many of you will know, I've relinquished alcohol from my life now. Yeah, I got to a point where I was like, alcohol is taken away more than it's given to me, so that needs to go. I was asking myself, like, you know, why am I doing all these things? Like, why did I get started with cold approach at 23 years old? Why did I become a magician at 13 years old? Why was I doing solo skydives at 18 years old? When I did drink, why was I drinking to excess? Like, why was I doing all these things? And I'm like, okay, it's part of my freedom from bullshit personality. Like, everything that I do is an extension of me wanting to get further away from bullshit and I guess to get to a sense of truth and, I don't know, enlightenment, whatever. But then I realized everything that I do is to transcend the human experience. And that's why I think I do what I do. Like when I make content like this, when I go to the Muay Thai gym, when I am filming cold approaches, when I'm creating content, like it's all done in an attempt to transcend the human experience. And I think by doing that, what I'm doing is I'm also transcending my limiting beliefs. Because like I said to you, we don't have dating problems. We've got human problems. And it's the human problems which manifest themselves into dating problems. So my take on this whole seduction game is fix the human problems first. And I think that everything that I do, rather than going to the gym to get a better body, rather than going to Muay Thai because I want to knock people out, rather than making these live streams because I want to get views and clients and hopefully people like me. It's like I'm doing all these things to transcend the human experience, to transcend my own bullshit, to get myself into this high frequency state where I feel so full that I don't need anything from anybody anymore. And this is how I cracked the dating game. This is how I cracked all of my self-limiting beliefs. It was raising myself to such a high level in terms of my overall frequency, my overall sense of state and consciousness that I no longer needed anything from anybody. And that's why I put the word accidentally in the title, because if you implement the esoteric principles that I'm dropping sporadically throughout this stream, you will become a new person. You will transcend the human experience whereby you don't need anything from anybody anymore, right? I'm not a dating coach. I'm not a pickup artist. I'm not some fucking day gamer. I'm a freedom from bullshit practitioner. And I really hope, and my mission is to free you from all of the bullshit that has historically held you back, but just understand the answers are not in the technicalities. It doesn't matter what you're wearing. It doesn't matter about how great your delivery is. It doesn't matter how much money you've got in the bank. If you still feel like the ugly duckling on the inside, if you still feel like an unlovable piece of shit, if you still feel like no matter what you do, you're never going to be able to receive love from the feminine, then it's all just vanity metrics at the end of the day. It's like working your bollocks off to buy a Lamborghini and then being too scared to drive it. So that's why the inner work, what I do with my guys, dude, like, I think whatever limiting beliefs that you're facing now, maybe you think you're not tall enough, maybe you think you're the wrong race, maybe you think your dick's too small, maybe you think you don't have the best body, maybe you had a traumatic childhood, maybe you got bullied at school, maybe you have got sexual shame, maybe you're living your life like a closet heterosexual, you're scared of being a man and having desire and finding women attractive. Maybe you think you are ugly. Maybe you think you don't have enough money. Whatever it is, like I feel as though I've experienced all of these beliefs somewhere along the lines. Like I tell my story religiously, but for anybody who doesn't know, like the elevator pitch is, for the majority of my life, I viciously struggled, not just with women, but with people in general. It's because I had a terrible relationship with myself. Yeah, like I had what I would term as a traumatic childhood growing up. My parents got divorced when I was 5 years old. Mum was working multiple jobs just so she could support the family unit. I was brought up on a council estate, so money was always this scarce entity. My mum's got a lot of her own mental health issues, so I was often the brunt of her emotional rage. So I learned early on that I developed these people-pleasing tendencies because I learned early on that people-pleasing was a survival mechanism, in essence. It's like I needed to learn how to keep my mum calm so she didn't fly off the handle. And then what happened with me was I transferred these people-pleasing tendencies, especially regarding women, to my early relationships. I was always needy. I always cared too much. I was always too available. I was always supplicating because I was terrified of being abandoned by the feminine. So I developed these people-pleasing tendencies to try and prevent that from happening in my life. This is why I say it's not dating problems that we've got. They're usually personal problems, but at their core, they are human problems, right? I think we can all agree that the fear of abandonment, the fear of not receiving love, the fear of not being worthy, I think these are universal human afflictions. But what I see with most bozos online who teach this stuff is they start up here. Like they just start with, okay, I'm going to teach you technicalities. Here's how you approach a woman. Oh, make sure you stood this far apart. Oh, you need to say this line at a specific moment. It's like, none of that stuff is going to make a shite difference until you get what actually matters solved, right? And this is what I do with the guys that I work with one-on-one. A big part of our coaching is getting guys to a position where they actually like themselves, right? Because when I'm speaking to you on these live streams, I'm speaking to a specific part of your identity, right? Because right now, as you're listening to me, as you're hearing my words, there is this conflict going on inside of you because you've got these different identities, right? There's the person or the version of you who you've always been. Yeah, there's a version of you who you want to be, and then there's a version of you who you think you should be, right? So it's like this trifecta of personalities, and usually whenever we want to do something incredible, like building a business, approaching women, living an international lifestyle, we get that sudden impulse to want to make a change. But usually what happens is we get clawed back into mediocrity by the version of us who we've always been and the version of us who we feel as though we should be. So for this live stream and for all of my successive piece of content, I'm really speaking to the version of you who you want to be, right? The aspirational version of yourself who wants to live a life free from bullshit, who wants to attract wife-worthy women, who wants to make a shitload of money, not because you're materialistic, but because you understand that money is a language of love, right? I make money to look after the people who've looked after me. I don't give a fuck about Lamborghinis, Rolexes, or penthouse in Malibu. I enjoy making money because it means that I can take care of my people, right? I can reinvest into myself, I can reinvest into my family, and also I think the goal for all of us, I do believe, is to become as wealthy as possible so we're not in a position of scarcity, right? If you're struggling to pay rent every single month, I think it's very difficult for you to reach this higher level of consciousness. It's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? You can research that yourself. But to keep things practical, the removal of our self-limiting beliefs, and really what I've done and what I teach is what I call anti-game artistry, okay? Anti-game. And what anti-game forces us to do is reject the programming, okay? Because right now, you might want to have an incredible dating life. You might want to learn daytime cold approach. You might want to live an international lifestyle. But what you found is there's so many conflicting agendas. Oh, you need lines. Oh, you need to be a high value man. Oh, you need to be a good boy. You need to work your 9 to 5. And really, my philosophy of life, this freedom from bullshit, is rejecting anything from your reality that doesn't resonate with you. So what I've found to be true is a lot of people operating in the world today are existing in this low frequency state. So imagine when you first wake up in the morning, right? What is your typical morning routine looking like? I don't mean in some like woo-woo sense of like, do you get up, do you fucking sing Kumbaya? But what I've found is a lot of people who want to live an incredible dating life are living lackluster lives. Usually they're working jobs they hate in a city that they despise. They roll out of bed in the morning, they're scrolling social media, they're getting bombarded with bullshit, they're getting flooded with this carousel of comparisons. Maybe, like me, you're watching porn when you first wake up in the morning, you're beating your meat, you're jacking yourself off into a sock, then you go into a job that you really don't like to do, and you think, oh, why am I struggling with women? Again, it's not dating problems that you're facing, it's personal problems, right? And I do think that this game that we play, it's a game of energy transference. So the higher we can get our frequency, she's your mirror, she feels what you feel, okay? So if you want to start overcoming self-limiting beliefs, if you want to start living a life that you're actually proud of living, if you want to feel as though that you are complete and whole within, then you need to become a new person, right? Because the current version of yourself up to this point is clearly not getting the results that you want. I'm not saying it to trigger you, I'm saying it to wake you up, because if you continue in this way, then you're going to continue getting the same results. And this is what I say, whenever guys reach out to work with me one-on-one, I make it very clear from the start that this is not an overnight fix. It's not a magic bullet. It's not some quick fix solution. If you want to live the sort of dating life that you know you're capable of, then it requires a complete overhaul of your current character. Everything that you're doing right now needs to be transformed, because if you could be making the money you wanted to be making, if you could be dating the women you wanted to be dating, if you could be living the life that you wanted to be living, you would already be doing it. Yeah, and one of the greatest realizations I had came from one of my mentors, and he said, Kristian, you don't know what you don't know. Right? You don't know what you don't know. And a lot of us are living in this state of blissful ignorance, and we think, oh, another video, another gym session, another sale is going to make a difference. No, it's a complete overhaul of everything, okay? So really, what I've done to go from where I was, which was a low-life loser, porn addict, erectile dysfunction, live in a grotty apartment in central Leeds. I was on universal credit, had £24.82 in my bank account. I was working this dead-end job for minimum wage. I woke up most mornings hating myself, hating the man that I'd become, hating the life that I was living, and I always knew that I was destined for more. It required this overhaul, and a huge realization for me came when I understood we become what we pretend to be. Okay, we become what we pretend to be. So if you pretend to be confident today, you are by default a confident person. When I go to the Muay Thai gym in Bangkok, I pretend that I'm the world's greatest Muay Thai fighter. The reason why I do that is to put me into the headspace of how I would operate my life if I was the world's greatest Muay Thai fighter, how I would show up for training, my diet, my nutrition. I would probably not be drinking alcohol. I would show up to training and give it 100%. That mindset has completely revolutionized the way that I perceive the world, because it allows me to set a new standard for myself, right? Understand, we don't achieve dreams, we achieve standards. And in life, we don't get what we deserve, we get what we think we deserve, okay? All we are is repeated patterns of thoughts and behaviors that we've accepted over time as our identity, and we then solidify this identity through the language that we use. So if historically you've been shit with women, what usually happens is we find something about our character, a flaw perhaps, that we assign for these lackluster results. So let's say, for example, right now that you're bald, right? Usually the narrative you will start replaying in your mind is, I can't attract women because I'm bald. And every time you go over to a woman, or you think about going over to a woman, that's usually the belief that plays on in your mind. So let's say you're a guy and you're bald, and you're telling yourself that you can't attract 10 out of 10 women because you're bald. And let's say you do start approaching and every woman says no thank you. It might not be the fact that you're bald which is repelling these women. It's the fact you are repelling these women because you feel repulsive to yourself. Yeah? And this is why it's the internal game. It's the narratives that we're feeding ourselves. Plato said, people who tell stories rule the world. So we want to make sure the stories that we're telling ourselves serve us rather than strangle us, right? And something which is super powerful for me is understanding we become powerful when we stop obsessing. Okay, so one of my favorite books is Reality Transurfing. And in Reality Transurfing, it provides I would say, a practical blueprint for overcoming most of humanity's problems. And a big part of the book is understanding reducing importance. Okay, the more importance that we place onto something, usually the more anxiety it triggers. The more importance we place onto something, it puts us into a state of lack, right? It creates an emotional imbalance. Like, oh, I need this woman to like me. I need to feel attractive. I need this sale to go a certain way. I need my flight to set off at a specific time. Otherwise, I'm going to feel sad and whatever. So if we can learn to reduce importance onto the things that we do, because oftentimes people be like, oh, dude, be detached from outcome. And I always used to find that difficult to stomach, especially when I was learning cold approach. I'm like, well, dude, how can I be detached from an outcome if I actually want the thing? It's like saying to a guy who's starving to forget about food. It's like, oh, yeah, cool story, bro. So what I found for me was I just had to change the outcome that I was focused on. Okay, so earlier I said that for me, what I'm trying to do with everything that I do is to transcend the human experience. So even if you don't think that you're good enough right now, even if you don't think that you're worthy, even if you don't think you're attractive enough, even if you think your dick's too small, even if you think you've got a strangely large nose, even if you think you've got a weird wrinkly forehead, even if you think that no woman is ever going to love you. By the way, these are all limiting beliefs that I've had, so I thought, might as well just go super transparent on the stream. That's okay, right? It's okay. Because what I found is average people are not average necessarily because they're lazy. They're average because they're scared, right? So whenever we went to school, we were either right or wrong, right? It's like answers were very binary. And if you had a question or if you felt unsure, like for me, raising my hand and asking for help in school, I almost felt like an outsider. I almost felt stupid. And if I got answers wrong, I would feel stupid. But I think for a lot of us, we've been castrated of our own confidence because we're scared to attempt. And what I found when I'm working with guys is the achievement is in the attempt, the pleasure is in the pursuit, and the success is in the showing up. Yeah, so even if you don't think you're worthy right now, understand that every time you do an approach, every time you rip through that resistance, every time you act in spite of fear, you are becoming a new person, okay? Because the version of you right now, you might not feel worthy, you might not feel good enough, but what I've always done is I've had delusional optimism and irrational confidence that with enough action, with enough time, that I could become the version of myself that I actually liked. Yeah, and this is a trajectory that I've been on since 23 years old. At 23 years old, when I was living in that grotty apartment and I was getting comments on the regular when I was posting YouTube videos from guys being like, oh, you're ugly, you look physically disadvantaged, you're a 4 out of 10 at best. One guy said that I look like a love child of Mr. Bean and Patrick from SpongeBob. What I did with all of this is I transmuted my pain into power. I did it all despite it all. And like, this is probably one of the best mindsets and practical things that I can give to you, right? Whatever your situation right now, however unworthy you feel, however shit you feel on the inside, this thing that I teach, this notion of anti-game, is do it all despite it all, right? Like, why not you? Yeah, let's just imagine right now, because a lot of guys like to use this archetype of the 5'2" Indian janitor, right? And just for the record, whenever guys are like, oh, Kristian, I'm short, what should I do? Or, oh, Kristian, I'm Indian, what should I do? Or, oh, Kristian, I'm black, what should I do? My answer to all these things is, I don't know. Why? Because I'm not short, I'm not Indian, and I'm not black. I think the issue that I see online with a lot of these supposed coaches is they give generic advice, but they've never experienced these things for themselves. I don't know what it's like to be a 5'2" Indian janitor. I don't know what it's like to be a short guy. I don't know what it's like to be a black guy. However, I've got clients and I've worked with clients who fit into this criteria. And that's why I share my testimonials. This is why I create client infield content with guys who fit into these archetypes, because I want to inspire as many people as possible, but I've got the humility to understand that my perspective is limited. So don't just take my word for it. Like, listen, go watch my testimonials. I've got a new testimonials channel that I've created. I'll link it in the comments. Like, guys who thought, oh, I'm too old. Guys who thought, oh, I can't attract women because I'm black. Guys who thought I can't attract women because I'm Indian. Oh, I can't attract women because I've just come out of a divorce. I can't attract women because insert reason, right? So I work with guys one-on-one. I completely change their lives radically, more than they ever thought possible. And then I create testimonials to show you that, listen, evidence has got the loudest voice, right? Whatever excuse you want to throw at me, I've already got a case study to overcome it. But let's just go with the Indian janitor for now. If I was a 5'2" Indian janitor and I still had the same mindsets that I have right now, honestly, my goal would be, I'm going to do it all despite it all. Like, I'm going to become an anomaly. I'm going to become an outlier. So what I would do is I would create a rock star dating life for myself. I would create a YouTube channel. I would show infield footage of me pulling all these beautiful women from all across the world, and I would become the exception to the rule. But I think for a lot of us, we become victims to the rules, right? We side on the side of, oh, I can't do that because X, Y, Z. But there's always a way forward, yeah? And even if you think, well, maybe you're watching this and you're an Indian guy and you're like, well, I don't really resonate with this guy because he's not Indian, then don't learn from me, right? Like, or if you're a guy who is short, then go find like short guys who inspire you, get evidence from them, and then go work with them, right? But I think that something that I've found to be so useful for me is understand we become what we surround ourselves with, right? Proximity is power. Show me your friends, I'll show you your future. You probably heard it before. We become the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. And I remember last October, I went to the 3-day mastermind event in Dubai. So it's a $15,000 3-day event. At one point in my life, especially when I was 23 years old, I would never have anticipated that I was going to be in a room, like a $15,000 event. Dude, I was in a room with guys who were making $1 million a month, right? And these were guys who at one point in their lives were sleeping in their cars or sleeping on friends' sofas or went dead broke, were in debt, and they transformed their entire lives around. And when you're actually in a room of these people, not on the internet, but like actually face to face with these people, you hear their stories, you hear about the adversity they overcame, you realize these people are no different to me, right? They are completely the same. They have to go for a shit, they have self-limiting beliefs. Even with all the money that they're making now, they still have some fears that they're not doing enough or they're not worthy, whatever. But when I was in this room, and I was in a room filled with all of these outliers, guys and girls, who at any point could have just accepted, oh, well, this is not for me. I can't do it because insert excuse. They did it all, despite it all. And this is what happens. When guys work with me one-on-one, usually they've watched a lot of my content, so they feel as though they know me. Like, you probably watch a lot of my videos now, and you probably know like a strange amount of information about me, yeah? And hopefully you've watched my content, you've applied the lessons that I teach, maybe you've gone out, you've approached, hopefully you've done 100 direct call approaches by now, and by the time we actually meet in person, usually what happens is you've already got the foundations in place, and then as soon as we are together in person, you become successful through osmosis. Like, the amount of times I've been working with guys one-on-one, like, I'm very loud in public. People who've worked with me one-on-one, they'll know that I don't hold back, right? I remember this one time I was coaching in London about 2.5 years ago, and I was coaching this guy and I was giving him some feedback about one of his approaches, and all of a sudden he crouched down and he started tying his shoelace, but his shoelace was already tied. I was like, dude, what you doing? And he was like, oh, dude, like, I just had to take a breather because people were looking at us when you were giving me that feedback, and I felt a little bit uncomfortable. I'm like, dude, this is the reason why your dating life is in shambles right now. It's because you give too much of a flying fuck about what these NPCs are thinking of you. Like, how do you expect to live an incredible dating life if you've got this fear of what these people are going to think. And that was the moment for him when everything changed, right? Because I called him out on his bullshit. I could have been like, oh, there, it's all right. Okay, I'll talk louder for you. Like, my style of coaching is very no bullshit, right? I'll tell you what you need to know, not what you want to hear. And it just snapped him out of his sleepwalk. He was like, you know what? You're fucking right. Like, this is the reason why I've been stuck up to this point, because whenever I've felt that anxiety or that apprehension, I've ran away from it, right? And he had like a physical response to doing that. Like, he had to get himself out of the vicinity because he was scared of being seen. And then as soon as I woke him up out of his slumber, dude, he was approaching groups. He was approaching women where there was like large spotlight effect. He was doing fucking approaches near the tube, you know, on the like train bit in London. And sometimes it just takes somebody to say something to you at a certain moment in a certain way that makes you realize, what have I been waiting for, right? I remember when I was working with Graham, one of my most famous clients, when I was working with him in Krakow, Poland. This was a guy 50 years old, never had a serious relationship in his entire life. He spent 3 decades always terrified of talking to women. I remember when he did his first direct cold approach with me in Krakow in August of like last year, 2 years ago, fucking time flies. I remember when he did that very first one, he came out of that approach and he's like, I can't believe I've waited my entire life to do that one thing, right? It was like 50 years of dating problems had just been eradicated in that moment, because he'd been telling himself the story that, oh, I'm 50 now, I'm too late for this, I'm too old, I'm not attractive enough, I don't have an interesting job, whatever the thing was. When you understand belief follows action, right? And just by taking that one action, just by doing that first approach and having it go pretty well, right? Having a woman just smile at him and say thank you, that opened the floodgates for more action, right? But what I've found to be true in a lot of people's lives is because we don't have to face anxiety, stress, depression, like we don't have to face these emotions head on, right? Like in the society that we live right now, everything is comfortable. Oh, I'm horny, porn. Oh, I'm bored, Netflix. Oh, I'm hungry, Uber Eats. Like, society is set up in a way now where we might even never have to leave our homes. Oh, you can work from home, you can ship from home, you can wank yourself off at home. There's actually no reason a lot of times for us to even leave, right? And like, the way that I perceive it is every time that we decide not to do that difficult thing, every time we decide not to approach that woman, every time we decide not to go to the Muay Thai gym, every time we decide not to take that sales call or create that piece of content or have a difficult conversation with a family member, what we're saying to society at large is, I'm happy to be a programmable slave. Yeah? That's the way that I perceive it, because the majority of people, they're not even watching this content. Right? They're not even attempting. They don't even have these empire visions in their life. They just accept what they've got. They're just static spectators. They're a cog in a machine. And for as long as I can remember, I always had this disdain of being ordinary, right? I looked at what other people were doing in my small town of Barrow-in-Furness. Everybody in my family works in the same submarine factory. They've never been out of that small town. They spend 10 hours a day watching the news, scrolling on their phone, seeing the latest catastrophic events in fucking Kenya. And I just knew early on that that was not the life path that I wanted to be on. And it's not because they're bad people. It's because they're just not my people, right? People want to see you do well. They don't want to see you do better than them, because it holds a mirror up to who they could have been. And one of the biggest strides that I've made in my own masculine renaissance, overcoming my limiting beliefs, is positioning myself in rooms of people who are further ahead than me, who I can see myself in these people. And the thought process that goes through my mind is, if this person can do it, I can do it as well. Yeah, I think hope is the greatest currency. A man without hope is dead. And I think what separates my content from a lot of these other charlatans online is I've documented my entire journey on this channel. Yeah, so you can go back, you can watch my oldest videos, you can see me, like literally see me in the grotty apartment in Leeds. You can see my earlier in-field conversations. You can see how I've developed, not just in the game of cold approach, but how I've developed financially, spiritually, emotionally, physically. And I think what this channel really provides is hope to people who might feel hopeless, right? There is always a way forward, no matter how shit you think you are. I really don't give a fuck who you've been in the past. What I give people an opportunity to do is radical recreation, right? Whoever you want to be, it's so important that you have a crystal clear idea of your custom made character. Once you know who you want to be, you pretend like you already are that version of yourself. Yeah, you reverse engineer it, you make your actions align with your ambitions, and you're relentless with it. Because what will usually happen, especially if you've got like a steady social circle at the moment, is as soon as you start to transform yourself, people will try and claw you back. It's like that crabs in the bucket mentality. Again, people want to see you do well. They don't want to see you do better than them. And a big reason why guys decide to work with me is not just for the coaching. It's not just for the personalized one-to-one experience. It's for the community that I've created as well, right? So inside the Entourage, which is my private community, we've got 24 active members, right? These are the best wingmen you will ever find in your life, but it goes way deeper than day game, right? These are not just guys that you can cold approach with, but these are guys who you can share the darkest depths of your soul with, right? Like we have weekly group coaching calls, and on those calls, guys will open up about things they've never shared with anybody else. Like we've had guys who've come out of divorces, guys who've like in the process of overcoming addictions. Like I've even used the group recently to destroy my toxic relationship with alcohol. I remember posting a message into the group after a particular heavy night out here in Bangkok where I went to this party, and I woke up the next morning feeling absolutely shite. I just contacted the group. I'm like, listen, this is actually the first time I've used the group for accountability, but I'm getting rid of alcohol and I want everybody in here to hold me accountable. We call it the Entourage effect, because it's like as soon as something is said, it's done. Yeah. And having this community of like-minded guys who get it, who are on the same trajectory, who, you know, like we can be out together and one of our guys could go over and approach a girl, and maybe the approach doesn't go that well. If you're with your civilian NPC friends, usually they'll shame you for wanting to approach. They'll be like, oh, dude, why did you approach? Oh, cold approach is weird. Oh, you don't want to be a pickup artist. Oh, let's go down the pub and swipe on Tinder. With our guys, it's like, we just understand it. Yeah, as many of you will know, this year, we're running in-person retreats as well, right? So as well as getting personalized one-to-one coaching with me, our Entourage members also are getting secret invitations to attend our worldwide meetup. So I'm going to be returning to Europe this weekend. So my Bangkok experience for this time anyway is coming to an end. So I'm going to be in Europe for the next 3 to 4 months. And during that time, hosting retreats. So getting all of our Entourage guys together, different cities all across the world, and these are going to be 5-day events where our guys can network, they can cold approach together, they can go out for dinner together, go to the gym together, go on nights out together. I'm going to be documenting the events as well, and I'm honestly so excited because I've never seen anything like this in the industry, right? Most people, most coaches, they just provide these bullshit group coaching boot camps where maybe you get results, maybe you don't, and then they're on to the next people. What we're doing in the Entourage is coaching, community, plus retreats. And this is why our guys are getting, I would consider, the best results in the industry, is because they become part of something which is way greater than all of us. And it's the collective consciousness that raises. A rising tide lifts all the boats. But yeah, I'll leave the testimonials in the comments if you are curious about the results that I'm getting, my guys. But in regards to the limiting beliefs and the stories that you're telling yourself, I do believe that once you start positioning yourself around guys who are on the same frequency, then you can start recognizing your own bullshit. And I think that's really important. Like a lot of the times when we're running our group coaching calls with the Entourage, guys will share some experiences. They'll say things about things that they're struggling with, or maybe mistakes that they've made in past relationships, or maybe mistakes that they're making at the moment. Like guys will see themselves in other guys and they'll think, oh shit, I'm doing that as well. I need to change something. So I think that is the power of community. As one of our Entourage members, Joseph, once said, cold approach is not a solo sport. It's a team sport, and it's also an extreme sport. You can get started with daytime cold approach on your own, no problem. Yeah, you can do those first 100 direct cold approaches all on your own, nice and easy. You've got all the courses, you've got all the material here. But if you really want to take it to that level where you unlock this sensation of abundance, where you can get dates on demand with wife-worthy women, at some point you are going to need to have a community. It doesn't need to be our community, but I do think you need a community around you, right? You can't build an army of one. But I mentioned abundance there, and we speak about abundance a lot on this channel, right? And abundance, it's not always having, it's knowing you can have, right? Abundance is not always having, it's knowing you can have. And what I found to be true, once I unlocked the skill of daytime cold approach, I became a new person, right? Because historically, I'd always been needy in relationships. I was always scared of losing relationships. So I lost myself in relationships. I was always too available. I was too needy. I would just be too much. I would be too intense in my early relationships because I was always scared of losing her, feeling abandonment, and then, yeah, I guess just like repeating childhood trauma. But then once I finally got this skill set down, I just this like weird like psychological shift happened where even though I'm in a relationship right now, I'm in an amazing relationship with an incredible woman. When I enter relationships now, I've already made peace with the death of these relationships because I understand relationships are replaceable. And that might seem dark, it might seem callous, it might seem Machiavellian to a lot of you. And maybe for me 4 years ago, I would have felt the same as well. But I understand now it just is, right? Nothing is good nor bad. It's the thinking that makes it so. We're all animals responding to incentives. Everybody just wants the best deal for themselves because the world is motivated by self-interest. So now because I've got a more rational view of the world, the relationship that I've got right now, it's like, it's not a case of I just want someone. It's like I want her, right? Out of all of the options that I had available at the time, she was the best one. I think that is the greatest place for a relationship to be created from. I think most relationships or most loyalty is based off of scarcity. Yeah, it's like, oh, you might not want her, you just want someone. Yeah, so you might be watching this and you're in a situationship right now, or you are in a relationship with a girl, and it's not because you're crazy about her, it's because you're scared of being on your own. Because usually what happens is guys know they want to change, right? They know they want to transform. It's like they're here and they understand that their potential is like all the way over here. But it can feel scary to step into the unknown because change, it's like those growing pains which we experience. But I do think to experience radical transformation, to overcome all of these limiting beliefs which have held you back, it requires us to completely burn the boats. So you cut out all other opportunities and then you can become a new person. Yeah, if you're trying to transform yourself, but you've still got this relationship in your life, usually it forces you to play it safe. I heard that when a rocket used to shoot off into orbit, usually it would have different fuel canisters attached to it. But in order for the rocket to reach its like full propulsion, it had to let some of these canisters go. And I think it's the same way with transformation. I think it's the same way with overcoming your limiting beliefs and finally getting to a place of wholeness rather than lack. It's removing the unnecessary, right? Letting go of the things which no longer serve you. It might not just be people, it might be places as well. I do think solo travel, recreating yourself in a new location is absolute dynamite because you might be going out there right now and you might be approaching, but it might be a case of you're just in the wrong place. I think a big part of the game of seduction, attraction is finding your place. Yeah, not just finding your people, but finding your place. Good game can't make up for a shit location. So if you're confined to Grimsby in the UK, then your results will be reflected by your environment. So I think the trifecta for creating an incredible dating life in the modern game: learn cold approach as fast as possible because that's going to separate you from pretty much every other guy on the planet. Learn day game, don't become a day gamer, right? You learn the skill on the streets. You don't have to stay on the streets, right? You forge a new identity on the streets, you learn the skill, you learn how to overcome objections, you learn emotional resilience, you learn how to open, how to converse, how to close, how to set up dates, how to close the dates. But then once you've got that competency from the streets with cold approach, you transfer it everywhere that you go to. So like bars, events, like social gatherings, just when you're traveling, like get the skill. And then once you've unlocked an international lifestyle on top of this, then you start to become dangerous, right? It's like, oh, I can cold approach and I can also travel. I've got a free course. It teaches you literally everything you need to do. I've got 2 free courses actually. So easiest thing to do, just like type in Kristian Casanova free courses. They'll be somewhere. I'll link them at the bottom of the description as well. And then building a compelling Instagram on top of this glues everything together. All right. So a big reason why women might flake on you during daytime approaches is a lack of social proof, right? She might just not feel safe going on a date with a stranger that's just approached her on the street, because daytime cold approach, it is just unorthodox in most cities. So if you get really fucking great at daytime cold approach, you unlock an international lifestyle. No, literally just finding a way to make $2,000 recurring every single month. You can pretty much go anywhere that you want. And on top of that, building a compelling Instagram profile, because evidence has got the loudest voice. You've got this international lifestyle, you're displaying it online, and you've also got the social skills to back things up. Then you become dangerous, right? But with the limiting beliefs, I think a big reason why I decided to leave the UK, a big reason why I decided to leave my hometown of Barrow-in-Furness is because I felt as though my personal growth in those locations were capped, right? I saw a ceiling living in Leeds. I saw a ceiling living in Barrow-in-Furness. And that's why living internationally, actually positioning myself in the locations where I was treated best as a man, where I found the women attractive, where the women found me attractive, where I had higher relative sexual market value, where I could leverage rarity more. Like, I remember when I was living in Brazil at the start of 2023, my closing percentage in Rio was way superior compared to my closing percentage in Manchester or York or Edinburgh, because I was able to leverage rarity. All I needed to do in Rio was walk into a gym, have like a conversation in broken Portuguese, and boom, I'm in. Right? That just wasn't happening in Leeds. In Leeds, if I wanted to do like hashtag gym approaches, I needed to play it more strategically. So I think a lot of times, like, the self-limiting beliefs that you're experiencing, they may get amplified by the shitty location that you're in, right? And this is why this is a holistic transformation. It's not just learning how to cold approach, it's learning how to become the version of yourself who cold approach can work for, right? So this means developing the skills. This means living an international lifestyle. This means overcoming the bullshit which has historically held you back. In terms of the internal beliefs that you're experiencing or getting faced with, it's like, what do you believe to be true about the world that isn't? What do you believe to be true about women that isn't? What do you believe to be true about cold approach that isn't? Because I think seldom do we take the time to reflect on the beliefs that we feel strongly about. Because a lot of times guys are going out there to cold approach, but they don't even believe that cold approach can work. And it's like they're almost going out there to prove to themselves that this won't work. It's like if I wanted to learn cold email or cold calling, there's no point in me getting started with cold calling if I don't think cold calling is going to allow me to achieve my result. It doesn't make any sense. So there's no point in cold approaching if you don't think cold approach can work. Or maybe you've got a lot of limiting beliefs around women. Maybe you've got these weird manospheric toxic beliefs about women. And like, you are internally projecting all of this bullshit onto the women that you're speaking with. And this is why it's so important for me, before you even go out there, before you even start interacting with the feminine, you get yourself into as higher frequency state as possible, right? So before you go out to approach women, that might be doing 90 minutes of intense Muay Thai. It might be doing some form of like high intensity interval training, like sprinting. It might be doing resistance training, like some like heavy squats before you go out there and talk to people. Getting social interaction before you start talking with women. This is a big one for guys, what I've noticed, is like, a lot of times guys fall into the trap of using daytime cold approach to get all of their needs met, right? So a lot of times guys who learn cold approach, they don't have enough going on in their lives. Like, they don't even have friends who they can talk to. So it's like they're going out there and they're approaching women, but they're not getting enough social interaction throughout their daily lives. This is why guys can come across as uncalibrated or creepy. It's because they're so nervous, they're so scared to do this thing. But then on top of that, they're not in this constant state of social flow, right? So as far as I'm concerned, the approaches have already happened before you even open your mouth, because it's not what you say, it's not how you say it, it's who you believe yourself to be when you say it, right? It's this game of energy or state transference. So make it as easy for yourself as possible, right? Do something at the start of your day, or maybe you work a 9 to 5 right now. I'm sure you're going to have a day off at some point during the week. So like you literally schedule a Renaissance day. Yeah, so you say to yourself, right, I'm going to wake up at 9 a.m, I'm going to smash a hardcore gym session, and then I'm going to go out into my city centre, I'm going to record a 30-second video of myself in public. That's going to invite the spotlight onto me, which is what we want. We don't want to avoid the spotlight, we want to embrace the spotlight. And then once you've stacked those wins, the more you win, the more you'll want to win, right? Momentum feels magnetic. You imagine the difference going over to a woman after you just rolled out of bed in the morning, scrolled the news or TikTok for an hour, wanked yourself off into a sock, and then trying to approach, compared to waking up in the morning, going to the gym, not spending hours on your phone, doing some form of social freedom activity before you approach, and then approaching these women, right? Same person, completely different states, right? So overcoming limiting beliefs, what I found, yes, belief follows action, but it doesn't just mean belief follows action in a cold approach sense. It means taking as much radical action throughout your day as possible, so you're constantly on. It's like always warming up, always talking to people, always doing things which scare you, push you outside your comfort zone. And then the more you make a habit out of doing this, it becomes something you are rather than something that you do. But I can't think my way into a confident state, right? I need to take action, which allows me to transcend the human experience. And then when I'm approaching women, or when I'm going to the Muay Thai gym, or when I'm spending time with my girlfriend, all I want to do in these moments is just give. I don't need anything from anybody anymore. I think we do become powerful when we don't need anything, right? The man who needs nothing receives everything, yeah? But I think for a lot of us, and I've been in this position myself, because I was always operating in this low frequency state, watching too much porn, consuming toxic content, waking up early in the morning to commute to a job that I hated, it was no wonder why I struggle so much with limiting beliefs. So this does require us to become a new person, right? If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. Have a clear idea about who you want to become. Create this custom-made character. Have this custom-made reality. Like, where do you want to be living in the world? How much money do you want to be making every single month? What sort of body do you want to have? What's your mental health looking like? If you want to attract a wife-worthy woman, who is she? What does she look like? How tall is she? Where was she born? What's the relationship like with her parents? What's the relationship like with her father? Does she have any siblings? If so, what's that relationship like? A lot of us, we know what we don't want, but we don't ever create this custom-made blueprint for what we actually want, yeah? So what I recommend that you do, download my free courses, especially, it's called My Most Fuckable Man course. There's a module in it titled Mindset Mastery. That literally teaches you step by step how I rewired my entire internal belief system and how I became more attractive externally, but more importantly, internally. And you can also get my free cold approach course as well. I'll link my testimonials in the comments if you're curious about the results I actually get from my guys. And if you've enjoyed this live stream, drop it a like. I really do think that whatever you want to achieve in this life, as long as it's within the realms of physics, like I'm not going to become MVP in the NBA. I really don't think that's in my life path. But I think if you've got a clear idea of what you want to do, of who you want to become, and you work like a savage in order to achieve it, I'm a living, breathing example of what happens when you don't allow your self-limiting beliefs to define you. Yeah, I was never meant to be here. I was never meant to be making this content. I was never meant to be traveling the world. I was never meant to be making a career out of daytime cold approach. I used to have atrocious social skills. I used to struggle talking to my own family. I used to break out into sweating fits at school whenever I got put on the spot to answer questions. Like, none of this stuff has come easy. None of this stuff has come naturally. It's not happened by luck. It's happened by design. But if I've said one thing in this stream that has helped you to break out of your sleepwalking, not to die with your music still inside of you, and even if you just implement one thing that I've spoke about in this stream, then I'm happy about that. So yeah, drop the live stream a like, consider subscribing to the channel, and I will be doing another live stream later on today with Efrem, who many of you will know, a a valued Entourage member. So look forward to that. And I love you all very much. All right, bye.